Hello, everybody. It's a live Ayurveda with Dr. Helen Thomas. And so I would like to say hello to everybody out there and hello to everybody from Facebook. And I'm going to try really hard to look into the little, I got some comments back, and it was that I was looking down. I'm not used to looking up at the camera. Okay, so I want to start this broadcast tonight of Live Ayurveda on Vedic astrology with a little chant to Lord Ganesha, which is, of course, Lord Ganesha is, we go to Lord Ganesha for every event and every educational event that we start and what we cook in the kitchen and anything we begin. And so I would invite you all to close your eyes and go in to hide yourself and touch back in. And for whatever reason that you're listening to this or looking at it on YouTube or Google or wherever you find it, to actually have a moment of what the true purpose of this is all about, which is to go inside and learn more about who you are using Vedic astrology. And so close the eyes. Om Ganapatiye Namaha. Om Ganapatiye Namaha. Om Ganapatiye Namaha. And also, of course, Ganesha is a patron saint, so to speak, of Vedic astrology. So tonight the talk is about Vedic astrology. And I want to say just a few words about Vedic astrology. And that is that Vedic astrology was something that I was always interested in for 25 years. And I studied it constantly for the last 25 years. I studied every book I could get. I studied, of course, Dr. Frawley's books, and I studied the Indian astrologers that are known to in popular Indian astrologers. And I always had a hard time with understanding what was going on. And then one day, I finally clicked in my head, and all the studying started to make sense to me. And once that moment happened for me, then I wanted to learn more, and I started taking workshops, and I started actually ultimately I am taking classes and currently enrolled at the American College of Vedic Astrology. So, and I found out that it's an endless learning process. And I started doing Vedic astrologies maybe a couple of years ago. And those Vedic astrologies that I started doing were amazing to me because I couldn't believe that I would say things to people and they would say, yes, that is the truth, that's the way it is, that's the way I am. And as deep as I would go, people would agree with the instinct that this information was specifically true. And of course, some people believed it was true but couldn't understand why anybody could know anything about their personal life like that. So Vedic astrology is quite like a mystery to a lot of people, but it's not a mystery. It's not a mystery. It's a science. It's an amazing science. And the basic fact of the science is, I'm going to turn around here and see if I can let you guys in on this. And then I'm going to do some little cards because I was asked for doing some flashcards. So Vedic astrology is based on the theory that life moves forward in observable, definable rhythms. That's like the absolute sort of minuscule detail that you have to meditate on in order to start really getting in touch with how this could be a science. Now, three things we want to discuss tonight. What is the value of Vedic astrology? And the short-term answer is self-understanding, okay? And then how does it work? And we're going to get into that a little bit because I'm going to give you just some, basic little facts for you with my trusty little cards for you. Okay, and then what is Vedic astrology? So let's start out, and let me see if I'm doing this right. So can you see that? What is Vedic astrology? Okay, so Vedic astrology actually, the word Vedic astrology is called Jyotish, and Jyotish, Jyotish, and that of course is Sanskrit. And Vedic astrology is a technique. Okay, that's really the bottom line. It's actually a scientific technique based on the movement of the sun and the earth and the moon and all the planets. And this technique actually is an event analysis used for forecasting. Now the word Jyotish actually means the science of light, which really is amazing, because if you really think about it, and it's one of the things that attracted me and delights me, and every time I do a Jyotish, I feel like I'm learning more about this science of light and what light really means, like go to the light, and people who are done a lot of books on afterlife, and they talk about the light. And Jyotish in the ancient people, it's a science of light. And Jyotish is, it's called Vedanga, okay? A Vedanga, which is literally a limb, okay? Vedanga is a limb of the Vedas, okay? And there are recorded books or evidence of recorded books as early as 440 before the current era. Now, in this book that was recorded that long ago, there are facts in there that include the duration, okay, of the year, the position of the luminaries, the sun and the moon, the solstices, and the equinox. So these cycles have been recorded in ancient times, long time ago, and they have been being studied and worked and observed, and I'm sorry, I'm putting my head down again, and observed, and the cycles have been like the Farmer's Almanac, okay? And the Panchachanga, P-A-C-H-A-N-G-A, is like the Farmer's Almanac. It tells everything about where the sun and the moon and all the planets are at what particular times on what particular days. And now, because we have software and computer software, the whole field of Vedic astrology is come to life again, because the Vedic software and the computer makes it amazing, because the computer is made for Vedic astrology, because Vedic astrology is all numbers, and numbers in the future and numbers in the past, and the computer just does that naturally. And so it's really like a renaissance for Vedic astrology these days. The book also included all of the full moon days and all of the new moon days. So the Vedas, okay, the Vedas, V-E-D-A-S, they're basically the core religion and culture of the ancient Hindu, okay, and even the modern Hindu. But really, now in India, it's a very diverse place, like America. There's everything going on there. There are every kinds of religions, so it's really not exactly India, but in ancient India, it was. Okay, and then there's the word Shastra, and the word Shastra means authoritative book, or, did I put that up long enough? Sorry. The word Shastra, can you read that? S-H-A-S-T-R-A. And the word Shastra means authoritative book or treatise. And the ancient scientist, who was also known as a seer, okay? So the seers were actually the original people who wrote the Shastras and wrote the Vedic astrology science, okay? And they were the scientists of the day. And what they did was they developed a calculation, okay? So they developed calculations, to measure, all right, the starting point and the sequential progression. So they measured the starting point and the sequential progression of the natural cycles. Now, the thing is that obviously when the sun and the moon and the earth and all the planets are moving, they don't stop and say, okay, measure this is it, this is the beginning point. No, it doesn't work like that. How it works is like if you took a circle and you wanted to say, where is the beginning point, okay? So the beginning point is where you put the X in the circle. And that is a way of understanding where you look to see at the time of birth. So the ancient seer went out and looked at the sky, and he saw where Aries was in the sky, and he turned to the eastern horizon, and whatever planet was coming up on the eastern horizon is called the ascendant, and that's the first house. And the first house is everything about you, your body, what you're going to look like. And you know, I've had one teacher say that you can read a person's first house and it'll tell you 75% of everything about their life, okay? And that's the first house. Now, what is the difference between Vedic astrology, which is sidereal astrology system, and Western astrology, which is the tropical system? And the difference is that the tropical system, remember that circle I talked about, on the X equals the starting point. In Vedic astrology, it's that you literally look up at the sky at the moment of the birth, and where Aries is, at the moment of the birth, you look to the eastern horizon. But in tropical astrology, the point X on the circle is where Aries is at the vernal equinox. So the first day of spring, okay, is where is Aries? That's the starting point. It makes it so it's about 14 degrees difference. It also makes it so that usually the rising sign of the person is usually one house ahead, okay? And so that's why there's this difference between Western, well, there are many differences between Western astrology and Vedic astrology. And I'll give you some of those differences right now. One difference is that they don't use the same calculations, okay? So in Vedic astrology, they use the ascendant, which is the first house, okay? And of course, in tropical, it's your sun sign, okay? But in Vedic astrology, you read the chart from 3 houses. You read it from the house that is the sun, and so you read the chart as though the sun was the first house. You read the chart, which is the moon, and the moon is considered the most important house to read from, and you read that as though it were the first house, and then the ascendant. So you have to read the moon as though it's the first house, the sun as though it's the first house, and then the ascendant as though it's the first house. And then you have to use a calculation which is known as the word nakshastra. And nakshastra is that moment when you looked up at the ancient sky or the modern sky, or you looked in your computer with your software program, whatever the case is, and you see where Aries is at the moment that the person is born and where the eastern horizon is. Then you look to the moon and you see what cycle the moon is in. And it's called the nakshastras, and there's 27 nakshastras. And the nakshastras are like as though the influence of if you lived in New York as opposed to if you were born in a small town in Iowa. That would be a very different context. It'd be a different whole cultural subset that you lived in, even though you were born in America, okay? So that's the nakshastra. And there's a nakshastra for every house, and every planet that is in every house is in an individual nakshastra. And it gives you another layer of information about the person depending on the house and the sign that we're talking about. So that's another, those are just some big differences between Vedic astrology and Western astrology. The next very important difference with Vedic astrology and Western astrology is what's called the dasha. And the dasha is the cycle that you're in currently based on the planet that is activated. So currently, I'm finishing my K2 cycle in, I think it's April of 2014, and it's a 7-year cycle. And then I'm going to go into my Venus cycle. Okay, so that would be very important to know in Vedic astrology, because then you would go to the house where Venus is with the person, and then you would see what is the most predominant trends that are going to be in your life during that cycle that's now been activated. And it's very helpful to, it's actually the main influence when you're forecasting to find out what will be going on with your life from this point forward. And then I want to just show you, if I can, I'm going to turn around here, and I'm going to write on my board. Hold on 1 second. Don't lose me now. I'll be with you in just a second. Okay. I have to get my red cloth, and then I'm going to determine where you can see me the best. And I'm going to draw an illustration for you. Okay? Okay, so let's see. I'm going to get green because it's darker. Okay. So this is a, I think I'm going to get a darker color. Hold on. Let's see if brown looks good. Okay. All right. Does brown look good? Okay, there we go. There we go. There we go. Okay. So this is what is called a South Indian chart. Okay? Okay. And the one thing that you have to know to start learning how to read your chart, and from everyone that I've ever really learned from, you know, they end up not reading charts. And the reason why they end up not reading charts is because after a while, when you've read so many people's charts, and I know exactly how they feel, you know, because I've read many, many charts myself, is that really this is a tool for self-understanding. So if I spend all my time just teaching other people how to read their charts, I would feel really satisfied, because when I teach other people how to read their charts, I'm teaching them the psychological and forecasting method of the Vedic astrology jewel, so they can look at the cycles of life and how they're influencing them and what's showing up in their life, and see and have a sense of the future. Not exactly the future like I want to know exactly when I'm going to meet the person I'm going to fall in love with, or could I win the lottery or not. Those things are actually possible to know, and that's why there's a market astrology. But for my purposes as an Ayurvedic physician, as a chiropractor, and as a person who helps people in life, okay, my purpose to do Vedic astrology is to enhance my approach in my clinic. So I use medical astrology when I'm working with a case and they are very sick, they have chronic fatigue syndrome, they keep getting sick. Then I look at their chart, and then I understand so much deeper information that I'm able to serve them more deeply and connect with them and be empathetic and be understanding and also know what to do. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that. But before I talk about that, I want to go back to this chart. So this is what you have to know. Okay, this is one thing you have to know to start learning your chart. Okay, you start right here, and the signs in Vedic astrology are fixed. That's how you read it. This is Aries. This is Taurus. This is Gemini. This is Cancer. This is Leo. This is Virgo. This is Libra. This is Scorpio, Sagittarius. This is Capricorn. This is Aquarius. And this is Pisces. Okay? Now, these signs are not going to change. Now, what's going to change, okay, is that the number of the house, whatever it is, like this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. What did I do here? 11. No, I wrote it wrong. This is like, that's 1. If that's 1, that's right. This is 12. This is 11. And that's 10. Okay? And this is 9. If Pisces was 1. But if, and one means where the ascendant is. Okay? That's what 1 means. Where the ascendant is. Okay? So it would happen to be that the ascendant is actually in the natural zodiac 12th house. Okay? Because where this first sign is Aries, this is the natural first house. Okay? The zodiac. The number of the zodiac is Aries. So this house will always be Aries, but it won't always be the first house. But let's say, okay, so did everybody get that? That this is the first natural house. This is always Aries. This is a South Indian chart. Okay? And what's fixed about it are the signs. That's what's fixed. So if you do this right now, while I'm talking, and you make this square, okay, which you see how I did that, okay? I made a line here, I made a line here like this, and a line across here. I divided it here, and I divided it here, okay? And then the fixed signs, Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius, okay? And so that's how you do that, okay? Now, it's so easy to find this information out. It's all over the internet, you know, and there are lots of great Vedic astrologers that are now doing daily, that have their own YouTube channels. And so you can find information everywhere, all over the place for Vedic astrology these days, okay? The thing is that what I find with my patients is that they don't really have the why. Why would I do that? And, you know, why do I need you to predict my life? Why don't I just live my life? And I'll see what happens. Well, there's a reason. And the reason is because it's called consciousness. Okay? And you mix it with something called awareness. Okay? And so if you have consciousness and awareness of the cycles, okay, of the earth cycle, the sun, and the moon, okay, and you, okay, when you start to have a bigger relationship like this, what happens is that your consciousness expands and your awareness gets more sharp. It gets more astute. You start looking at your life in a different way. And what happens is that it adds to your dimension of living. It brings you deeper happiness. Not to mention, it gives you a pathway into your own psychology, into your own psychic thoughts, into the idea that, you know, let's see, the trend is here that I'm going to be agitated. Okay, and then all of a sudden I find myself agitated, and I was like, interesting. Why am I agitated? Everything is perfect, and I'm agitated. Oh, okay, I think I should meditate, relax. And I meditate. I do my mantra, I relax, I think about the sun and the moon and the earth and my relationship to it. I think about my chart, and I let go. And I think, all right, that's just an energy that I am like attaching myself to. And it's actually just in the bigger universe just running through me. Okay, I'll let that go. And in that moment, instead of feeling as though I have no control over my life, I've developed these tools to understand that it's not a question of having control or not having control. It's a question of having a relationship and letting that relationship develop dimensions. And Vedic astrology gives us tools to do that, are very specific tools. Okay? Yes, Western astrology has very similar tools, but you don't find these tools in other mediums. The Vedic astrology is unique. It's a unique mathematical calculation using sun, moon, and earth, and the relationships of the influences of the 9 planets, and how the moon comes and goes, and the sun comes up and goes down, and how you move through your life. That everything is so interconnected. But it's fascinating when you're doing these charts every day, or you get to know your own chart really well, and you are able to like relax and watch it happen and watch aspects of these trends and engage with them. And that's really what the power of Vedic astrology is. You know, like, honestly, I've had experiences where I've had a patient, I've gotten their birth times, I've looked at their chart because I was perplexed about what was going on, and I got a glimpse into that, oh, okay, this person is going to go through a time where they're going to have an increase in pitta. Now that means that the next flare-up on this, around this period, is going to be a pitta flare-up. And they will come into my office with a skin rash, which is the definition of a pitta flare-up. Well, I mean, it just tickles me. And I can't really exactly explain this to the patient because they don't have the same kind of information that I have. So I'm sorry, I keep looking at myself in the screen, and I know I'm supposed to be looking at you. Anyway, they don't have that same information. So they don't really understand that, but I get to use it to serve them on a deeper level with more confidence and knowing exactly what herbs to use that pacify pitta or alkalize the body. And so not only do I see a red rash, I know it Vedically, and I can feel it in the pulse. And I feel as though I have a complete understanding of what's going on in that moment. Will it tell me when a person has cancer? Well, there are people who definitely predict that and have been correct. There are absolute planet, sign, house influences that will tell an astrologer that there's a chance of this. And I've seen it in the chart, and then the patient, without me telling the person, they'll tell me they had cancer, so I don't have to repeat it in the chart, because I always hesitate about that. As you would think, that's a hesitation to say such a thing without absolute proof, because you don't want to plant negatives in people's heads. So I'm very careful not to do that. Can I predict cancer every time? Absolutely not. Can't do that. Okay? There might be Vedic astrologers out there that can do that. I don't know, but I'm sure there are. But I don't know them, and I don't know under exact circumstances where they've done it. I just know that where the influence is in the chart, okay, if it's in there, I can see it. Okay? Whether that's going to mature and blossom, I'm not going to know that. But anyway, that's just a little bit, a half an hour. I mean, to study Vedic astrology is actually a lifetime to do. But I would invite you that if you're interested in learning Vedic astrology, that there's great opportunities on the internet, especially with the American College of Vedic Astrology. Excellent. ACVA. And you can get a 2-year degree in that, and it's an excellent program. And there are many other ways to get it on the web. There are lots of YouTube channels where you can go and learn. But the basic thing I taught you today, if you know that about the signs, then you can start actually reading your chart, because then you know where the houses. All you have to do is go online and get a free chart done for yourself. Of course, there's a lot of, you have to be careful about that too. because you have to be careful about the program that is being used, because some programs are good and some programs are not so good. So you have to also be careful about that. So I would invite you, if you want a Vedic astrology, you can go down here to the link asktheayurvedicexpert.com and make an appointment online. You can make an appointment for 30 minutes. You can make one for 15 minutes. You can make one for an hour and a half. I've done all of those kinds of appointments. You can be learning your own chart and call me up and ask me how to help you out, and I certainly can do that too. So my half an hour is going, and what I guess I would like to say to you is that Ayurvedic Vedic astrology is an incredible tool, and I would invite you to use it and learn how to use it, and I would invite you to have a Vedic astrology chart reading with me, and I can help you out and give you the first reading and explain everything, give you the feeling and flavor of it, and then you could take it from there. Because really, being your own Vedic astrologer is like using a tool to get to know yourself. So thank you very much for showing up tonight. I actually have 6 viewers live, and I want to say hello to all of you. And next week, I'm going to change the time on this. I'm going to start doing this around 12 o'clock on Sundays because it works better for my schedule. And if you have any comments, or you have a subject that you would like me to talk about, or you need more on one thing or the other, please just write me an email, or leave it in Google, make a comment in Google, or call the office and ask me to do it, and I'd be happy to do it. This is like my 3rd or 4th time, and I'm getting better at this. I'm getting the lighting done. I'm not so nervous, and I'm really enjoying this. It's great, and thank you for joining in with me. Good night. Bye, everybody.